to VoteProPot-Cast, the award-winning cannabis news podcast brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Here are your hosts, Phil Adams, Jay Britton, and Andrew McCreadys.
The marijuana black market just won't seem to go away. We'll tell you some of the reasons why. Researchers are recommending alcohol-style THC units for cannabis. And when hemp gets stressed, it actually makes more THC. We're going to cover this stuff and some other stuff. And first of all, we're going to start off with our friend over there, Andrew McCreadys, who's going to tell us about what some of the East Coast states are doing, considering a plan to unify the adult use legalization.
Several governors from northeastern states have gotten together to discuss cannabis. Now, the governors from New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania met in New York City to discuss cannabis. They met with representatives from Massachusetts and Colorado who have been through this program before. And what they said now, the governor, Ned Lamont from Connecticut, says, what we want to do is coordinate this on a regional basis, which makes total sense.
Think so.
Absolutely,
now,
yeah.
They're talking obviously about not just medical, but adult use. And they also are talking about vaping. There's no way they're all going to roll out the same regulations at the same time. That's never going to happen. Right. And a few of these governors tried to get adult use rolling in their states, but met with resistance. Like Cuomo in New York, remember when he said, I'm going to legalize it the first 100 days. And the opponent said, no,
I don't think so.
And also, unless you have a plan, it's impossible to write up regulations in 100 days.
It's complicated.
Anyway, so they said they're going to be getting together and discussing. One of the issues is vape cartridges, and they said fruit flavored or flavored e-cigarettes in general, and they said that also cannabis is being vaped. So they want to address that problem. They think about passing regulations that might restrict the sales of these e-cigarettes and other vape cartridges. So right out of the gate, they're going to shoot themselves. They're going to do something stupid.
Yeah, no kidding. What the hell?
Because what the problem with vaping is there are the additives and the construction. So when you get these cheap cartridges that melt and you're inhaling heavy metals, that's not good. Right. But they know how to make ones that work. But there's some companies out there buying from China, and they're so cheap and they're malfunctioning. Now, I don't know if they're mixing with one of the additives and the elements melting, and that causes a third substance that's causing the problems. But they haven't really, as far as I know, they haven't put their finger on it yet. So anyway.
Yeah.
There you go. Jimmy Young from the Pro Cannabis Network, and just a quick shout out to those guys over there. Thank you for having us on your podcast. We really had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. But he raised a great point, and because a lot of these, Andrew, you're talking about regulating the vape cartridges, and that could be the source of this problem is cheap products and heavy metals, coming from China. And he made the point, says, well, a lot of places get their cartridges from China, but you can get, the good expensive ones that are $3.50 each, or you can go on the cheap and get them for less than $1, and that's where you find your problems. So it's not just that they're coming from China; it's just people are cheaping out on them.
Yeah,
and also I think the people in the black market that are buying these empty carts and filling them with, their homemade e-fluid.
Right. Key point.
They're not following any regulations, and they're going to the company that we discussed a couple of weeks ago that actually sells you empty cartridges and counterfeit labels.
Right.
So you can sell product on the black market that looks like legit.
That looks private labeled.
Products.
Yeah.
Right. And meanwhile, it's bathtub gin all over again.
Right.
Yep. Well, that's interesting. Now, I think it would, like you say, it'll be very impractical to try to get them all the same and all at the same time, even less practical. But I think if they work together, and I don't know why they couldn't just go one state to the south and include Maryland, but what are you gonna do? But Maryland's got its own program, and I think it's working out pretty well. But if you have people coordinating from different states, you get a framework, and then reciprocity is not such an issue, and as far as adult use is concerned, and a lot of stuff could get ironed out, putting heads together.
Yeah, and I wonder how a coalition like that of states might have some influence on federal legislators, too.
Maybe.
When you see several states getting together and making regulation and doing research together and setting guidelines and bylaws and stuff, I don't know.
Yeah.
Might be an influence.
But exactly. This is how federalism is supposed to work. The states are supposed to be the laboratories to work out these ideas, and some will get them wrong, some get them right, and in the end, you get a good compromise.
The fact that this meeting that they had representatives from Massachusetts and Colorado to come there and say, "Hey, this is what we've learned."
Sure,
learn from and that's what we're seeing. I think with more and more states legalizing, they're learning from other states, going, "We're going to." So a template, I think, is sort of slowly forming.
That's a good point.
What they could do there is really advance the work on that template.
I think so.
So, guys, this is how a state needs to legalize. Now, they all have their own challenges. So I think every state is still going to have little nuances in their regulations that are unique to them.
So by 2055, when Idaho maybe gets around to thinking about legalizing adult use, they'll have a framework to where they'll have a template to work from.
We'll all be worm food by then. What the hell?
Well, I think this is a great idea. And as far as we're here in Maryland now, I believe that Maryland could do the same kind of thing with Pennsylvania, West Virginia, D.C., and Delaware.
No doubt.
Which all have medical programs.
Right, you left Virginia.
And then one day maybe, well, they don't have medical programs yet. But we could do that. And the other thing I think these governors can do when they're together like this, go, we should sort of authorize wholesale trade, but business is okay between the companies in our states.
Yeah. Right.
Hello.
I think that would be a huge
interstate commerce. Hello.
Yeah.
Right. That would really help, and really make the northeastern cannabis industry like the center of the cannabis world.
Yep.
It really will. And once New
York
in
America anyway.
Imagine New York and Philly and Boston.
Yep.
And D.C. and Baltimore all getting in and just,
why should those West Coast assholes have all the fun?
Well, because
I'm kidding.
they're
I love
the
the
first
West Coast.
to get off their ass and, Well, you lived in L.A., didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. Aren't you one of those West Coast... One of those West Coast liberals? You went to Berkeley, or
No, I didn't. Well, just one of I went to Berkeley in Boston. I didn't go to Berkeley in California.
Wrong Berkeley.
Technicality. You're one of those libtards. Damn snowflake.
No, I was a Reagan Republican back in those days. Are you kidding me? It's fire breathing.
When I was in college, we were having an election party the night that Reagan won in the landslide, and the election was called before anyone arrived at the party.
And by that time, no one felt like partying.
Yeah, right. Don't. Okay, so I'm glad to see some governors, and by the way, they all are Democratic governors, if that means anything. I think Democrats have been working on this issue for a long time. A lot of them have. Well, anyway, thumbs up to those guys. Let's see it happen.
Well, folks, as always, we would love to hear your thoughts on these and any other topics you wish to give us your thoughts on. And we hope you're enjoying these podcasts. We sure are enjoying bringing them to you. And if you are, do us a great big favor and help us get the word out. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or whatever platform you're using. And share Vote Pro Podcast with a friend, somebody who may be interested in the cause or just, enjoys podcasts. Send
us an email. We love to hear from you at podcast@votepropot.com. We have a message line, 240-257-2441. Give us ideas, leave us some comments, leave us critiques, and we'll play it on the show.
There's so much going on in the world of cannabis that there's no way we can cover it all on our podcast. So we do a lot of sharing on social media. So please check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
One of the things about hemp is that when it gets stressed, it actually makes more THC.
This is a big problem that I did not know about. And this is for farmers. And I read several articles on it today. And specifically, I'm going to quote from an article from a website at North Carolina State University. This was written by George Place. And he talks about how this can really drastically affect the farmers. And what happens is obviously in states like North Carolina, Kentucky, those states where they don't have a we'll call it quote unquote marijuana program, meaning greater than 3%, 0.3%.
But they do have hemp.
But they do have legal hemp. It becomes a huge issue. And here's how it becomes an issue. If you're a farmer and you're growing hemp, what happens is they come out and test your crop when it's 3 to 5 weeks into flowering. So they take samples, they cut the top 3 to 5 inches off of a plant, and they test it. They test the biomass, and they figure out what the THC level is. And if you're over that 0.3, you're screwed. You
have to destroy the crop.
Destroy the crop. I mean, that can be hugely expensive, obviously.
Wow.
I mean, if you've got acres and acres of hemp, so they let you test it again in a couple weeks, in a few weeks. But again, if it comes back the same, you're screwed. So the biggest problem now, I think, is they don't have a lot of research on this. They've only been researching for a couple years. So there's a lot of different speculation as to what can cause this, but they do know that stressing the plant can cause it to spike, or they call it hot THC. So the THC level spikes.
So what kind of things constitute stressing?
Well, it can be temperature changes, drought, flooding, and one of the things is excessive or not enough nutrients. So if you over-fertilize or under-fertilize, they believe that heat and cold, which obviously farmers have no control over. So, and some of these, obviously strains has a lot to do with it too. So this is a pretty big issue. And the biggest problem right now has been that these farmers can't buy insurance. So you can't insure your crop.
Right.
Now, that has changed. That will change. As of 2020, the USDA has announced that they will offer insurance. So at least they can insure the crops, which will make a huge difference.
Well, that makes it easier, yeah.
But right now, they've done some testing, and it's been over 10% fail. So that's 10%. Pretty huge. Yeah. And of course,
so is that because now instead of 0.03, they're coming at like 0.05 or something?
I think there's a 10
or 0.3%.
There's like a couple of percent give
either way. Yeah.
Yeah. But
right,
still,
but all of a sudden you plant hemp and it comes up, 25% THC.
Yeah, right. That doesn't usually happen, but they did say
there's your problem there. Then you got your marijuana.
Well, it seemed to be a basic hemp plant. If it stresses out, it's going to increase THC, but not so much to make it a psychoactive plant, does it?
Well, yeah, the number. Well, it doesn't matter because it's the law. The law is 0.3.
But if it has 1% THC, come on, guys.
Yeah, but the point is, it can't be above 0.3. If it's 0.5, which is if you think about it, 0.5%. 0.5%. That's a tiny little fraction of a change, but boom, you're out. And
also, it's got to be consistent. It can't be psychoactive.
In 2017, they processed 135 hemp samples, and 14 came back above 0.3. In 2018, they did 400 samples, and 38 came back. So we're looking at 10%. It's pretty significant. So if you're a farmer and growing hemp, man, it's got to be pretty stressful.
Yeah. Here's just a thought, just to throw this out there, and based on no actual knowledge on the subject at all, but doesn't this sound like the kind of thing to you that invites graft? I mean, rather than spending all that money on insurance, maybe the regulator might,
take $1,000.
Yeah, you might make your insurance premium to him, and this is the kind of and this is the kind of uber regulatory state shit that creates the swamp, and it's so stupid. And when we see it in the cannabis world, it really shines a glaring light on it because it's such a brand new industry, and all of these regs are starting to change and come down and be added, and it just seems like 5%, 10%, someone's palms getting greased.
I would imagine. Well, and the thing is, there's so many contributing factors. It's not like it's one thing you control. If I just give it the right amount of fertilizer, I'm fine. Altitude, temperatures, the amount of water, stressing the plants in any way, too much sunlight, too much heat.
And it's a plant because if it's on it, if it's going to be above 0.3%, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do about it because It's in the ground. It's growing. What do? It's going to do what it's going to do.
What I'm fearful of is one day an inspector comes in and they clip it and they go test it and it tests positive for a higher amount of THC. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, Joe Farmer, who did everything right, filled out all the paperwork, has a SWAT team coming into his farm to arrest him, burn his crop down, and take him to jail.
Absolutely, and that's even a worse scenario.
Yeah. So if you're a farmer and you're familiar with this, because I'm certainly not, and I think I speak for all three of us. Man, we'd love to hear from you. You know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, what are your experiences? If you have, not just in cannabis, but but just growing in general, that might shed some light.
One of the laws that Newsom signed into law in California gives the rights of companies to get their product second tested. Because what is happening, they're coming and go, it didn't test right, destroyed the crop, recall it.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, again, let's get a second opinion on this.
At least,
now, all of a sudden, what happens, this guy's got 5 acres or 10 acres, and you test one plant. Man, come on. I mean,
well, they
go
do
around
that.
And,
they do that. And North Carolina and Kentucky both have that set up. If you fail, they come back in a few weeks and you get to test it again. I don't know how many. It didn't say how many. It's
like
times
taking
you
your driver's test.
It's still so risky.
They're hemp farmers. It's hemp, guys.
Right.
It's not. They're regulating it like it's plutonium.
Yeah, and think about it. If it's 0.5% THC, who the hell's going to smoke that?
No one's going
to. I mean, you're going to get a headache
we had
from
in
all
high school was higher than that.
It was like 3 to 5% in high school.
Right. This is 0.5. I mean, it's like, give me a break.
It seems like the marijuana black market is sticking around. Just doesn't seem to want to go away. Why suppose that is?
Well, as it turns out, cannabis has been anointed by Wall Street as one of the fastest growing industries on the planet.
Wow. Yeah.
Planet Earth.
On planet Earth. Sales between 2014 and 2018 were tripled. So it went up 300% in 4 years.
Wow.
Now, some estimated by 2030, the industry will expand either 5 to 18 fold.
Wow. Jeez.
So we're like still in the infancy. It's just scratching the numbers.
Can you say stock market?
Now, this is one thing that Wall Street investors cannot ignore.
Nope.
As you might know, the pot stocks haven't been doing too well in the past 6 months. Some companies have seen like a 50% decrease in their value.
Yep.
And another challenge that some of these companies are facing is they're not achieving the projected sales. Okay. Now, and one of the reasons that they're saying this is happening is because of the black market. Now, California is the largest weed market in the world, and it's projected that illegal sales will outpace the legal sales in the tune of $8 billion to $3 billion.
Shit.
Right.
Wow.
Now, in Canada, the illegal market makes up for 71% of all the sales. Here's the thing. The cannabis industry is not a new industry.
Right.
It's been around for decades.
Yes.
And been evolving and growing for decades. What we're doing now, we're changing it and evolving it to a regulated industry. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that there's already these pipelines and networks set up. And I'm sure there's all these little growers that sell to their friends and family. They have like 20, they grow for like 25 people. Their friends and family and friends and families of their friends and family. That's it.
Right.
No, they're not looking to expand.
And they've been doing it for 25 or 30 years.
Right. They'll grow. I've heard these guys, do a grow for once a year. Mm-hmm. So like 4 months, they got full thing going. Then as soon as they harvest it and go to cure it, they tear down the grow.
Gotcha.
And then once it's cured, they tear down the thing. Then they can't get caught. So they have these little systems set up, and now it's just cheaper. Now, one of the reasons that the 5 reasons that this article on 420 Intel claims, and one is the issue of supply in Canada. Now, the problems in Canada and some U.S. states, the problem is the regulators are overwhelmed with applications. Mm-hmm. They're slow to give out the dispensary licenses, and in some jurisdictions, it's even more difficult. And growers just can't keep up with the demand.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's a big problem in Canada. Now, the second problem is the tax issue. Now, in selected states, let's take California, for example. In California, the buyer pays a 15% excise tax. Now, the wholesaler has to pay a $9 per ounce fee. That's $150 per pound.
Wow.
That's when the growers are selling to the dispensaries and processors. And they also have to pay $2.75 per ounce for just leaves, for shake, that they're using to make, the scraps that they're using to make
Right.
drink. Which that comes up to $44 a pound. And we're talking tons of weed grown every year.
It's a lot of money.
Now, all this adds up to an aggregate tax rate of 45%.
Good God.
Meanwhile, California had an established market, and when it went legal, all these companies that were pretty much being run legally all of a sudden became illegal.
Right.
Now,
Due to regulations and such.
Right. So they're competing with that. Now, the third reason they're saying is the slow dispensary approval, and product shortage, which is sort of the problem in Canada. I know in California, they're slow to approve the dispensaries, and they have one dispensary for every 61,000 people.
Wow.
So how does that translate? I guess that means that people are just impatient and they say, hell with this, I'll go to the black market.
Well, yeah, which means that it's not as available. That for every 61,000 people over 21, there's only one dispensary. And it's not, and some of them are close to your house. Well, you're just going to go down to the guy you've been buying from for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Now in Oregon, it's 5,500 people per over 21 per dispensary. Now, I believe that the black market in Oregon is probably not thriving as much as it is in California.
Right. That's a manageable level.
Now, another one is a jurisdiction problem. Some municipalities are just blocking it. Now, that's what's happening in California. And in California, 80% of the 482 municipalities have banned cannabis.
80% of them?
Yep.
Wow. So it's not as legal in California as we'd like to think.
Yeah.
Right.
That's shocking.
Well, it's legal, but there's just so many, so much of the gray market is just thriving.
Huh.
Now, the fifth reason is regulatory action has been spotty. For example, there's just so much black market out there and gray market out there that how do you expect to put it out of business? You're not going to do it with the police. We've proven that ain't going to work. No. And now it's such a gray market, it's even harder for the cops. If a cop pulls someone over and they got 2/8 in their car and they got and it's legal, what can they say?
Yeah.
And the guy's but he could be on his way to selling it. Now on Weed Maps, we did a story about this. Out of 3,757 companies that were advertising either dispensaries or delivery services in California, 2,835 of them were illegal, were not licensed. Right, so how do you compete with that?
No, you can't. No way.
You can't. It's like if I wanted to start a soft drink company and call it Jay's Cola, and I want to start selling it on the shelves next to Pepsi and Coke. There's no way.
I do like the name though, Phil. It's a good
Kind
name.
of catchy.
Catchy.
Well, as I said before, the cannabis industry is not a new industry; it's an established one. So we got to transition from the illegal to the regulated market, and it's that simple. And it's not going to be, and it's going to be the road to complete legalization is going to be a rocky road. It's going to be many challenges, and but I don't see the black market going away anytime soon. And if anything, maybe one of the ways you can deal with the black market is maybe let's start incorporating it into the legal.
Yeah, encourage them.
The legal system.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, do you think, and I think I know the answer to this, that your average person would rather deal with the regulated market than with the black market, all things being equal?
I think so. Because the dispensary visit, because it's just by selection.
Right.
Quality.
Quality.
Safety. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think what might be happening in California, especially, is like you got these growers that have been there for a long time, and they're growing some high quality stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going, man, you want an ounce of danky shit for $200?
Yeah.
Give me a call.
Yeah.
Or you're going to go to the dispensary and pay
twice
$50 for an eighth.
Yeah,
right,
of medical quality weed.
Well,
half the price.
These established growers and distributors are so set, like you said, Andrew. And when you look at the regulations and the tax and all the headaches involved with getting legal, you already have an established network. You already have established customers. Why would you screw it?
And you're not paying taxes.
You're not paying taxes. Why screw it?
And I think the tax thing can't be overestimated. 44%. It's just confiscatory. No industry can survive on 44% taxation. I don't care what it is. And
you can't write off.
Exactly.
You can't write off any of the
losses.
expenses. Right. this should scream loud and clear to people when it comes to, you think just because you raise taxes, you're going to raise revenues. You're not. And it's a very simple explanation. People have choices. Now, the choices may not always be good ones. And in this case, the choice is the established market, i.e. the black market. But people do have choices.
So there's a group of mental health workers and researchers who are recommending that cannabis be sold by standard units, much like alcohol is. When you buy alcohol, it's
like a proof.
It's a proof, right, which is a percentage. So they're recommending that because cannabis has always been sold just by weight, right? You buy an ounce, you buy a gram. Writing in the journal Addiction, specialist mental health and addiction researchers from the University of Bath, King's College London, and the Australian Catholic University suggest that introducing a standard unit for measure for THC content in cannabis could help make users more aware of exactly how much of the intoxicating compound they are using, and in turn, mitigate some of the mental health risks that come with excessive cannabis use. That's the part I have problems with.
Right. But, what mental health risks would those be?
Mental health risks. Well, but I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, it kind of makes sense if you think about it. What they're recommending is a standard unit of 5 milligrams so that any product you sell with cannabis is 5 milligrams. Of course, the problem...
How can you do that with flour?
The problem is because cannabis is administered in so many different ways. You can smoke a joint, you can do a bong hit, you can vaporize, you can eat edibles. We know there's so many different ways. I'm not sure how that would work. Of course, that question was asked of them, and they said that it's doable. We're working on a method, and we'll publish it in a future edition of.
How do you sell 5 milligram? Flour?
Well, I think it's maybe more of a rating system, like how much of your daily requirement of vitamin D do you get in your Captain Crunch?
I think what they're suggesting is that, for example, you could say that, and they do this now in a lot of packaging, this gram of flour has X milligrams. So
right.
if you wanted to, you could break that into so many bong hits or a joint or whatever, and technically you would know. They claim that an average small joint has 5 milligrams, and I don't believe that.
Well, what you can do, an eighth. Okay, so when you buy an eighth of cannabis, it'll say it has 25% THC by volume.
So I guess you could do the math and work
by
backwards.
Volume.
But it's
or by weight. It could be by weight or by volume.
But their
by
thing
amount.
is that's too confusing. Nobody's going to do that math, especially stoners. Wait, let's see here.
Yeah, but nobody pays attention to how much calories are on the labeling on food. Do you look at the food labels that much? No, you just
they want what.
But it's there if you want to.
Or when you pick up a bottle of liquor and it's either 40 proof or 60 proof or 80 proof.
Right. You have an idea of how how it's going to affect you.
And if they're suggesting you buy a gram of cannabis, and it says there that, this gram has 10 units in it. So if you take your gram and you break it into 10 parts, each one of those is going to be 5 milligrams. Their idea is to have a standard. So that's what they're pushing.
Right.
My problem is not so much with that.
I think that's not insurmountable. I think it's not.
I don't have such a problem with that. My problem is their kind of reasoning for it is that, they allude to, or at least kind of give the impression that it's dangerous mentally, high quantities of THC. And they claim things like, hash and, some of the oils and stuff that are very high THC, they need to be unitized.
Well, when you buy at a dispensary, there's a label that says this is 25% THC.
Yeah, but
right. They already do that.
Yeah, I would think so. They want to standardize the units, is what they're saying.
Well,
and so in other words, Andrew, everything you buy cannabis would say this is 10 units. This is 2 units.
Well, it says so many milligrams of THC.
Right, which is already on there for the most part.
Well, not really, but you could do the math, I guess.
Well, yeah. I think we could see. I think it's a legitimate role for government agencies and regulatory agencies to play to set guidelines. Now, to use those to send people to jail is illegitimate, but I think it's standardization, letting people know what it is they're buying. that it's a quality product and it's got this amount of CBD, THC. So
any cannabis products you buy at a dispensary, or when they're writing up the regulations for cannabis, labeling was a big issue.
Yeah,
was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing is the evolution of labeling.
I think you're right. That's basically what it is.
It's a good thing. So thanks again, folks, for joining us today. We sure did enjoy bringing you this week's episode. Now, don't forget, we are also posting our quick mini-sodes once a week, as well as our full episodes. They're just a quick fix and get you some of the news of the day. Also, we want you to check out VoteProPot.com. We're selling coffee mugs with the VoteProPot logo on there, and they look pretty sharp, I gotta tell you.
Help the cause, because we could do, if we had a little bit bigger budget, we could be a lot more effective at spreading the word.
We have no budget. This is out of our pockets.
No budget. I'm on a low
we appreciate the help.
budget. Yeah, so check it out, but I think you're going to like these mugs. They're
be a great Christmas present.
yeah,
there you go.
And as always, give us that 5-star rating. You really help us out. Share us with somebody who might be interested.
Send us an email at podcast@votepropot.com or call our message line at 240-257-2441.
And please follow us on social media. Go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just do a search for VoteProPot.
Lock me up, find me good, label me a menace to your quiet neighborhood. I don't grow no plants, the state says I can't. That's not freedom, freedom, freedom. That's the point. Smoke a bowl, I will roll a joint, do what I want. If I hurt nobody, that's the point. And if I want to get high, why shouldn't I? That's not freedom, freedom, freedom. That's the point. For all, not just lobbyists and lawyers in D.C. They don't listen to the people, but they decide what's best for you and me. Smoke a bowl or roll a joint. Do what you want. If it hurts nobody, that's the point. So let's get high, yeah, you and I. It's called freedom, freedom, freedom. It's called freedom, freedom, freedom. Oh yeah. That's the point.